Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and Puerto Rico has just been hit by one thing after another. It's been sad to watch natural catastrophe after natural catastrophe, but there is a lesson and bottom line that people need to understand, which we will go into shortly. But first, let's go into the latest news. As this Zero Hedge article says, power plants shut down as earthquakes pummeled Puerto Rico, at least one killed. And as the article goes into, Puerto Rico just can't catch a break. After a series of earthquakes have rattled the island over the past 2 weeks, a series of even more powerful quakes and aftershocks have followed on Tuesday. The spate of quakes included a magnitude 6.4 quake, which occurred at 8:24 UTC for 24 a.m. local time, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center measured the earthquake at magnitude 6.6. The damage from the quake, the largest in a string of earthquakes that have hit the U.S. territory since late last year, has left 1 dead, 8 wounded, and prompted power plants in the U.S. Commonwealth to be taken offline. For some, the destruction probably dredged up memories of Hurricane Maria, which left the island in shambles in 2017 and caused hundreds of deaths. Though the island's power authority expects power to be turned back on later in the day, provided that no other issues materialize, fortunately, Tuesday's earthquake isn't expected to cause a tsunami. According to the New York Times, a series of tremors started with 3 medium-strength quakes during the night of December 28th and 29th. As emergency services and hospitals switch to backup generators in the meantime, Puerto Rico's Governor Wanda Vazquez Garced tweeted to the people of the island to remain calm and safe. Public employees were excused from work on Tuesday unless they worked as first responders. A few typos in the article, and I apologize for not pronouncing the governor's name properly. But anyway, you could see the tweets here in Spanish. And continuing on, it says, classes at local public schools, which were scheduled to resume on Tuesday after a holiday break, were instead pushed back until after January 13th, giving inspectors time to check buildings for damages. While reports suggested few were harmed, images flooding on social media appear to show collapsed buildings and mounds of debris. And you can see some pretty shocking images there. The New York Times, which has reporters on the ground, talked to some locals who described watching their homes, which have not yet been fully repaired from damages sustained during Hurricane Maria, be leveled by earthquakes. Continuing on, it says, among them was Mr. Rodriguez's house in the Esperanza neighborhood of Guanica, where some of the most serious damage was reported, including 5 collapsed houses. Now, in addition to the tarp he has had since Maria, Mr. Rodriguez's house has huge cracks running up and down his green interior walls. And I quote, "It cracked open everywhere inside," said Mr. Rodriguez, 83, a retired bus driver. The quakes on Monday and Tuesday were so powerful that the arch on one of the island's most popular rock formations, known as Punta Ventana, was destroyed. And that is a very popular tourist destination. One of many, I should add, stone archways that's collapsed in the last couple of years, sadly. And just imagine how many thousands of years, if not hundreds of thousands of years, it takes to form these things. As it continues here, it says, Banco Popular announced that its branches would remain closed on Tuesday, while ATMs will work as long as there is electricity. Interestingly enough, crypto would have helped the situation a bit if you have portable chargers for your phone and any kind of ability to reach cell phone service, which is more than a bank can say. As it finishes off in this article here, it says, as Puerto Ricans pray for the quakes to pass, it looks like the island just can't catch a break from natural disasters even after hurricane season has come and gone. Now, I want to talk about something that's very important here, which is my bottom line for this story, is that there is a huge problem with dependency today. We see that as far as pension plans go, shortfalls globally, worldwide by the year 2050. set to hit about $400 trillion, which is about 5 times the global GDP, and that's not sustainable, and people won't get their pensions. That's enough of a scheme, enough of a problem as it is, but that's another thing that's reminiscent of people being, unfortunately, more dependent than ever on government. And interestingly, you have that playing into what you see where the schools are closed until January 13th. I mean, that's more time for kids to learn how to be independent, because schools teach kids to be dependent slaves nowadays. I'm sorry, it's true. The whole idea is to work people towards being weak and unable to, take action in their life and be self-sustainable. Therefore, in situations like this, you end up having more people dependent on government, begging the government to help them, and I don't blame them. They're in a situation where they're forced into that. This is what I try to spread the information about, is independence, freedom, responsibility, because look, you have the government, you have the banks. As we saw after the hurricane, the grid basically went down. People weren't able to buy food, even though there's stockpiles that the government was hoarding and not giving to people, while demanding more federal, money in order to essentially virtue signal and attack, the federal government, when they were the ones hoarding water and food, which was totally sickening and wrong, just to get a political message out there and try to gain political points. I mean, people were suffering and they were doing stuff like that. It's just sickening. And there's still, I hear, a lot of stockpiles left that haven't even to this day been delivered. Now, on top of that, banks went down essentially. People couldn't transfer money. Essentially, they had to have cash delivered to Puerto Rico. Because they weren't able to use Interact or Maestro. They weren't able to use credit, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, any of that. And people were essentially stuck without the access to the money that they put in the bank. And of course, as I mention all the time, if your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's the bank's. And so that's why, the cashless system is very inefficient as far as that goes, if you don't have alternative power grids outside of the 1950s power grids that most people in the United States are living off of. And again, the difference between a cashless society that's centralized and a cashless society that's decentralized is the centralized one utilizes blockchain infrastructure or just terrible, point of sales programming and technology, and essentially pigeonholes people into the situation where if your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's the bank's. Well, if your money's always going through the banks via digital transaction and legal tender laws, it's never your money, it's always the bank's, and you are essentially enslaved to the banking system and government by fiat. And then if you're dependent, then you are subservient to the state, and that's exactly where they want you. They put you in that situation to begin with. So it really sickens me to see what's happening in Puerto Rico, because we keep seeing this play out over and over again. Another example of it, while the decentralized cashless system would have been, while it not always efficient in these kinds of situations, if you have a grid outside of the terrible old school U.S. Government grid, you'd have ways to transfer currency like you see in Venezuela, Colombia, elsewhere when they're in crisis or in hyperinflation, what have you. People are able to transfer things one place to another and be able to put food on the table for their family. And on top of that, the stores all run out of goods very fast. And since no one's able to grow things or, collect rainwater in a lot of states for that matter, and people are fined for growing vegetables these days. It's all Agenda 2030, Agenda 21 kind of stuff to make people more dependent. Then they are, again, more dependent. And they are in a really tough situation when push comes to shove, when they are forced into these big cities and then floods happen, hurricanes happen, tsunamis happen, or major earthquakes happen and bring the grids down. So, the power went out for a ridiculous amount of time in Puerto Rico, and they are still building from that extensively. They have not caught up yet. And it's just really sad to see one natural disaster after another happen. My thoughts and prayers are with everyone in Puerto Rico. But at the same time, I say this is a lesson to people that they must prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Always prepared to be independent, self-sustainable, and self-reliable, because at the end of the day, this stuff is very real, very prevalent. We see what's happening in Australia right now. Most of the country's on fire, and the United Nations is loving it. They are able to enforce their crazy regulations and rules, which makes people more dependent. and puts people more under the control of these massive centralized entities, which is just terrible. So this should be a lesson to everyone that they need to do what we always say here at WHAM: food, water, shelter, self-defense. You're not gathering things. You're the toughest guy on the block. Gold and silver is wealth insurance, in my opinion, not economic advice, not investment advice. More, in my opinion, as wealth insurance preserves your purchasing power against a crisis, as well as gives you something physical to utilize in situations like this. On top of that, cryptocurrencies that are properly decentralized and fundamentally useful versus, these centralized digital currencies utilized through legal tender laws and enforced social contract usury, where people are extorted to pay off the interest on the debt, and they can't even go to and get their money out on certain days of the week, and it takes days to send money over to people for it to actually be spendable. It's just terrible old school system, which is why the decentralized systems that are being built on the free market are much more efficient, and people should utilize every single opportunity they can to be more independent. Responsibility and freedom are the same thing. They play hand in hand. One cannot exist without the other. So as this happens, I really hope the best for everyone in Puerto Rico. I hope people are able to, help each other out, help their neighbors out, and, I hope more people are prepared than when Maria hit, because I was just seeing way too many stories of people that not only didn't have insurance, but had no food, were starving, had no water, and people are getting sick. It's just, people couldn't access their money. We need to learn from these kinds of mistakes, folks. And I hope everyone out there sees this and maybe, gets some preserves, maybe gets into preserving some of their wealth in other assets, other currencies outside of the US dollar. I hope people prepare for, like I said, the worst and hope for the best. Anyway, I really appreciate everyone joining us. Tell us, what do you think below in the comments. Make sure to press like on this video and share it if you can, and check out those links. Help support us. Get a WHAM t-shirt. We got lots of merchandise in our Teespring store, and we got lots of options to pledge, donate, anything that keeps the spread of free information alive on the internet as YouTube cracks down on it. Anyway, I appreciate everyone joining us, and until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Like what you see here at WHAM, don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We cannot do it without you guys. Every donation is extremely, extremely appreciated, as we're getting incredibly shadow banned. We've lost 80% of our audience since January of 2019 and counting. They are ripping us apart here on YouTube, and the only thing we could do in the meantime as we prepare for the next big step is to ask for help from the viewers that support our free information that we try to post on a daily basis. You can also find us on Subscribestar, where just $1 a month, that's all it takes. $1 a month is all it takes to truly make a huge difference. If everyone gave $1 a month, it would change everything for independent media, and we could win this information war, and we can defeat the mainstream medias eventually. And of course, on Subscribestar, we post subscriber-only content that you'll only see on Subscribestar. So make sure to pledge there, become a patron. That makes a huge difference, guys. And also, don't forget to check out our Bitcoin address below in the comments and description, as well as on the screen for you to scan, if you please. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on the alternatives. We will likely be deleted by YouTube in the next 2 years. It's already happening on a vast scale, so make sure to find us on float.app. That's flote.app. At Josh Sigurdson, as well as at WHAM, W-A-M. Float.app is replacing every social media, and I mean, it's just incredible the opportunities it provides for not just creators, but for the average person who wants to get away from these nannies telling them what they can or cannot see. They plan to replace Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon. You could subscribe to us on Float and pledge with cryptocurrency. It's really innovative. We are also on BitChute at World Alternative Media, as well as so many others, Minds, PocketNet. You can find us at World Alternative Media on Instagram. There's many options. And finally, don't forget to join us at Anarchapulco 2020, the famous event, the best Liberty event known to mankind, other than perhaps Anarcho Vegas 2020. There are two major events coming up that we are extremely excited about, and you can use promo code WHAM, that's W-A-M, and save 10% on your tickets to these legendary conferences. There's so many amazing people speaking there. You won't want to miss it. So make sure to support in any way you can, even if it's just sharing our videos, pressing like, pressing to be notified. Anything helps, folks. You are the change you wish to see. Thanks for watching, everyone. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.
Bye.